and it's my pleasure to welcome in local singer-songwriter and long-time friend of this show, Daniel O'Dell, better known as Heartwork. Dan, it's great to have you in the studio.
It's lovely to be back.
So, for anyone who hasn't heard of you before, just a little recap from you, if you could, about kind of how you got into music and progressed to where you are now.
Shall I go way back?
Let's go way back.
Way back. Okay, so I'm 12 years old. I'm sat in my brother's car. He's got the Eminem Marshall Mathers LP, and I decide to be a rapper. Then I dye my hair blonde, I write a song, I perform it in my school assembly, and I get bullied for the next few years. Then I realise I'm making a terrible mistake here. So I pick up a guitar, and then I start playing guitar, and, well, rock guitar, like electric, like... Not like that, but,
Bill and Ted style-y.
Yeah, exactly. But, it was mainly from Blink. I was listening to Blink, although we won't go into what all the stuff that's been happening around Blink 182 this week because it's been some terrible stuff. But it's and so it was rock band stuff, bit of metal, bit of screaming, bit of shreddy stuff, and then I decided to play acoustic guitar. I toured the country and some of Europe as Dropout Dan, an angry folk artist, and then I realised that I didn't like my songs anymore. So I decided to scrap it and change everything, and now I play some really sad songs.
Last time we saw you was just after you'd started the Heartwork project where you're at now, and you're in the process of releasing your EP 5. One of the big points we touched on was kind of your development from Dropout Down to Heartwork. I kind of like to follow on from that, Now the release is kind of out and out there, how does it feel now it's established, so to speak?
It was quite nerve-wracking, and that sounds quite a pretentious thing to say when I'm not a massive artist, so I know it wasn't coming out to millions of people, but I had a fan base as Dropout Down. There were people that knew me, and I had a bit of a fan base, and they knew what they got if they came to a show. And this is completely, well, I think it's completely different to the Dropout Down stuff. It's less rah, and it's a bit more nice and laid back, chilled out. So it was quite nerve-wracking. Also, the subject matter of some of those songs on that EP5 were quite personal. I didn't realise how personal they were until I started playing them live after the release of the EP, and I was like, oh, these are revealing quite a bit. So I'm really happy. I feel so much more fulfilled from doing this than I did as Dropout Down, if I'm being honest. So, yeah.
And it must be nice now you've had time to kind of bed into the Heartwork side of it, because as you say, it was such a different transition from the Dropout Down stuff, kind of angsty, folky with a punk edge, over to now the Heartwork, and as you say, writing from the heart and really writing things that are personal to you. It must be nice to finally find that level ground where you feel comfortable within it, See,
and that's the thing, and like the Dropout Down stuff was always personal, but it was always from a very different place. Like, it was almost as a way to vent, like vent anger, vent things like that. Whereas the Heartwork stuff, it's just more about whatever's on my mind at the time, just writing about. And I mean, some of the things on 5 and the new EP Coloured Out, like there's subject matter in the songs that are only very small things, but I've managed to kind of find some grandeur in them and make them quite, bigger things than they actually need to be. But so it's just, just taking the little things and turning them into something else, I think. So.
I mean, how have the old Dropout Dan fans received the project so far? Have they been very on board?
The things I've heard have been nothing but positive stuff. I hope that they're being genuine when they say well, I'm sure they are. If they didn't like it, they wouldn't buy it and they wouldn't listen to it. And I've had great, I have some lovely reviews as well from like online media and stuff. So
I mean, I guess, do you feel in the same way that you kind of matured to a degree and grew out of the Dropout Dan persona?
Yeah.
Do you kind of feel that your fans have followed suit and grown and made that transition with you?
Yeah, I started doing Dropout Dan when I was, properly when I was 18. So the people I used to perform to around the St. Neots area were 16, 17, 18, all that. So yeah, we've all kind of grown up together. And I think that's another reason why I stopped doing Dropout Dan, because I wasn't emotionally attached to the songs I was playing anymore, and I think the crowd kind of knew what they were going to get, the local crowd knew what they were going to get, and it was nice to just shake it up and change it.
Yeah. I mean, what's that like for you as an artist when you, to jump back to the Dropout Dan, when you get to that point where you're playing a song and you're like, I feel nothing for this anymore? It must be really awkward and weird.
It happened on Valentine's Day 2013. I released Forever Instead, the final Dropout Dan EP, and that 2 days after the release of it, me and B-Sides went out on a UK tour, and it was on the Birmingham date that something just clicked in my head. I was like halfway through a set, and I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. Like, I'm not enjoying it. And I was being on tour. I loved doing that. Being around those people, I loved. It was just being this angry 18. I wasn't, pretending to be this 18-year-old kind of thing. Putting myself back in that mindset of who I was back then. I just didn't enjoy it, and it was I was so emotionally invested in these songs and monetarily invested in these songs. Well, I recorded and put out and everything to it, and I don't think it was a waste at all, but it was definitely a weird feeling to be like, oh, I don't want to do this anymore.
That must have been a really odd time for it to happen as well. In that point when you're out on tour and you're kind of committed to playing that material at that point.
Yeah, it wasn't. There were definitely some sleepless nights worrying about it. There were, and definitely some questioning my sanity throughout that time. Yeah,
definitely. Well, we're going to hear a track from you now. We're going to get you to play your first live track, which is from your first EP, is Heartwork 5. Do you want to tell us a little bit about this track first?
Yeah, this was the first song I wrote and recorded as Heartwork. I wrote it basically, for a bit of background, in May, split up with my girlfriend, moved back home. It was a bit of a bad time. And then the week after all that kind of went down, I had a gig in Cambridge on the Friday. I was like, oh, I've got to write some new songs. So I had like 3 days of just writing, and this was one of the gems that came out. And it's quite personal.